Well, hello there and welcome to the bedroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for April 8th, the day of conscience. All right, and here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of conscience. Well, what we have what appears to be the likes of two juxtaposed, I would guess, greyhounds or some sort of slender snouted dog. I looked up what a slender snouted rodent might be. I was thinking a mongoose or something, but they don't look anything like that. That said, let's say it's a greyhound. I don't know. That said, does that speak to the day of conscience? I don't know. Who's to say? A lot of times these visual representational images are a little enigmatic, but sometimes they seem to hit right on the nose, the title of the day. That said, not altogether all too important. Not when it's April 8th and it's somebody's birthday. That's right. So if your birthday is today, April 8th, well, I just want to wish you a happy birthday. That's what's important around these here parts. That said, a lot of times folks find these videos late. If that's the case, well, I hope you had a happy birthday. But sometimes we also get folks who are just curious about the day and or they, fingers crossed, are here to celebrate. And so if that's the case, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the birthday redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the Diecast birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if you've been here before and know what's going on, or you're not interested, hey, just skip ahead in the chapters, get to the redirect, all right? I'll be here rolling dice because I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. All right, and I rolled us a 3 and a 4. 4 or 7. Oh, we're just one shy of the 8. Oh, all right. Well, hey, what's synchronicity, you may be wondering? Well, as I hear it told, folks, the universe or the higher powers that be, if you like, will oftentimes put things in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our ambitions. But a lot of the times we're very narrow-sighted. You know, we got the blinders on to what's going on around us in our everyday affairs. So we're apt to kind of miss the things the universe, the higher powers that be, puts in our path. So this is a little bit of a experiment to help you start picking up on and seeing such things, all right? And you never know what it might lead to. But we kind of need something that's mutually agreed upon between us and the universe to help us identify those things that's trying to get us to notice. What could that be? That's right, your daily numbers. Your 3 and your 4, 4 or 7. That said, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. You could do your own. But if this is something you want to try out, maybe get into your life a little bit, hey, it's probably advisable you grab your own set of dice one of these days and then take yourself out to maybe a place near and dear to your heart or someplace you've never explored before and try this out. All you got to do is say ascribe directional values to number sets, say north 1 to 3, east 4 to 6, and so on. And you can also go evens and odds for yeses and nos, questions you throw out there, or left and right, and then time limits with which to go in those directions. That said, you want to keep an eye out for not just your daily number, but everything that's going on around you, because you never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. Take the visual representational image, for instance. Hey, you might start to see slender dogs being walked and right across your path. I know that might seem a little commonplace, but hey, I haven't seen a greyhound in my life very often here. So that would be pretty interesting. And maybe more than one presents. Or maybe you see a greyhound bus go by. Or maybe, I don't know, a billboard for greyhound. Who's to say? It doesn't have to be that. It can be just about anything. So you guys stay sharp and eagle-eyed, all right? That said, all you do, like I said, get your direction, time value, and set off. And then once you reach the end of that time limit, take a moment, see what you see. You never know. Maybe somebody crosses your path, and maybe it's someone from high school you haven't seen in years, all right? Hey, stop. They ask you why you're rolling dice. Let them know what's going on. Hey, you know what? They might just be apt to join you. Hey, you didn't anticipate that happening, did you? All right? You guys start catching up. You know, they find out it's your birthday. Maybe they treat you a little something, something. And I don't know. Maybe you take a bus ride. They see a greyhound pass by. I don't know. That said, I think you get the idea. That might not sound that magical, but who's to say what happens when you try it out? You might just see, taste, touch, smell, or apprehend something that's just otherwise otherworldly. All right? And if you do apprehend any of that, well, that's the magic I'm talking about. All right? So I hope for that for you on your birthday. That said, I think you get the idea. Synchronicity there. Let's get into the redirect. Here we go. Your month is April, your day is the 8th, your sign is 17 to 19 degrees Aries of the Aries II period specifically, and your quality and element is Cardinal Fire. All right, April 8th, the day of conscience. April 8 people manifest strong feelings for their fellow human beings, often displaying well-marked humanitarian and altruistic tendencies. For April 8 people, it is not enough to be admired or at the center of what is going on, although they often are, it says in parentheticals, but to express the concerns of their associates, friends, family, or countrymen. The welfare of others is of the highest importance to them, and in extreme cases even greater than their own. It is possible, however, that they may be highly intolerant as well, valuing one social group, of which they are usually a member, it says in parentheticals, over the other. Curiously enough, although possessing a star quality, April 8 people often carry an inherent shyness about them. While they are performing their so-called roles on life's stage, they seem to be in their own private world. And it is this unusual admixture of public intimacy that they give to group meetings in which they are often involved. Cool under pressure and in a crisis, April 8 people can be counted on for their calmness and their unwavering support during difficult periods. And at times they exhibit an almost saintly quality. The values of most people born on April 8 espouse the cause of the disadvantaged. Not that they are necessarily social reformers, but they do believe that everyone should be given an equal chance. And because most April 8 people favor the underdog, the downtrodden, those with public or political careers generally do whatever they can to ameliorate unfavorable social conditions. And regardless of their station in life, April 8 people are extremely critical and outspoken when they see those powers over others, whether it be personal or economic, it says in parentheticals. Also, indulging in excesses or injustices. And when responding to such injustices, their incisive barbs can really pack a punch. Though forceful individuals, April 8 people seem to experience ups and downs in their social standing, largely determined by events and or accidents beyond their control. People born on April 8 may be hard for others to touch emotionally. They often seem to be quietly suffering from a private hurt which no one will ever understand. Most do not want to be reached in this area or understood, since their primary energy is directed outward on the world. This may make it difficult for those who want to help or have a close personal relationship with an April 8 individual, who place more worth on giving than receiving. And it may be in fact difficult for April 8 people to accept anything from anyone, particularly psychological help or what they see as charity. And April 8 people are stars who shine alone in the firmament, solitary and a bit melancholy with a strange beauty. They do not need adoration of others, yet they seek to promote their values at the highest level possible to them. Their drive to succeed may be great, but rarely motivated by egotism. And when they seek power in their work or their family life, it is usually for the purpose of furthering the common good as they see it. And in this, they are truly unselfish. Well, all right, a particularly interesting Aries II day, to be sure. Bucks a lot of the traditions that seem to carry through with this particular time period. And what's interesting about Aries II is it bucks tradition and convention in and of itself. So the fact that you're kind of going against the grain in that respect, highly interesting insofar as a day that lands in this period. So I may be burning down everything I wrote here in the notes. I like to provide a little bit of a commentary. So let's get into some notes here. Touch on some of the things I've already mentioned there and the like. All right, here we go. April 8, Day of Conscience. You're said to manifest strong feelings for your fellow human beings with a marked humanitarian and altruistic proclivities. And the reading claims being the center of attention isn't your primary concern, though you often are despite that, which is a very common dynamic for the Aries period as it happens. And despite being, what I have right here, it's despite that being kind of abreast of what's been going on the past few days, that dynamic has kind of been shook up. All right. So what's interesting about Aries II, everybody seems to have the same kinds of qualities, but they're realized in completely different ways. And like I said, I think you kind of buck that convention quite a bit. Some of these days have been hard to write the notes for because they were saying the same things. And I think we're going to get a little bit to that so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Most Aries folks are said to garner their fair share of friends, but by and large, they show little to no concern in this realm. The breakdown kind of mentioned that in no small part. Concern for being left to their endeavors is more their speed, all right, or your causes, it sounds like. Having said that, showing favoritism, another common element that gets mentioned for Aries people within their respective focuses on occasion. Which also extends to a certain kind of cool and collected modesty, despite having that Aries II star quality as an innate trait. A lot of other periods, a lot of other people in the period, they also have this star quality present, and not for too many, but for a couple, modesty. Actually, not this period. In the book, I misread that. A lot of other folks in the book who had that star quality, the modesty goes right out the window. All right. But for this Aries period, doesn't seem to be the case. And so that was mentioned here for you as well. Even though I assumed it's, I'm sorry, I assume this is just still more of a running theme here for the period. You seem to be sharing those common traits I mentioned in that respect. Though, like I said, completely different by the traits through which it's realized. But this favoring of the underdog, and then also, that's not something that I've seen in this period so much, all right? A lot of times these Aries folks, they're kind of focused on their respective endeavors or their job or their passions, and everything else kind of goes out the window. And a lot of times they get a lot of friendships despite that, or people who are very captivated by them. And then these folks are just like, well, whatever, you know, cool. And they kind of entertain it, but it's not a focal point in their lives. And I picked up on that here too for you as well. But they did say you're outspoken with a quick barb, and that's something that doesn't get mentioned for the Aries folks all too often, if ever. All right. That said, by my guesstimation, the reading also examines a common isolationist facet that often belongs also to other Aries folks. And it relates how many of you may go through life quietly suffering and being difficult to touch emotionally. Difference being for you, it may be more internal and personal, especially if you direct energy outwardly. Whereas isolationism with other Aries days, it was more of a physical location-oriented aspect to it in a lot of cases. They don't get out of their physical safe spaces, if you like. Not nearly to the same level as, say, a Capricorn individual who's so focused on their occupation or their purpose that they literally stay home and they never leave. That could be an aspect for you, but that wasn't directly mentioned here. And it is that kind of that way for the Aries, but not dramatic of a case. But it is hard for people to get access to your humanity, ostensibly, as they mentioned, which ultimately, if you like other Aries, it may not actually matter to you anyway. But interestingly, star being the strange beauty, for sure, I would say. And it's interesting they put that in there as a little bit of beautification of the writing. They don't often go into entertaining that too much. But like I said, another captivating dynamic for sure. I don't know that I really made a case for why this day kind of separates itself from the other Aries II period, specifically individuals, but it does stand out for me in that respect. I know I was making I was mentioning a lot of the similarities, but this is a day that is distinctly different. That's all I'm trying to say. You have to take my word for it, I suppose. That said, that's been the breakdown. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. Here we go. Those born on the 8th day of the month are ruled by the number 8 and by the planet Saturn. And since Saturn posits responsibility and a sense of limitation, caution, and fatalism, April 8 people are not impetuous in implementing their plans, but rather proceed slowly and carefully in building their lives and their careers. This is at variance with the Martian exuberance and impetuosity of Aries, thus potentially creating conflicts in less evolved April 8 individuals. Often such people will exhibit an internal struggle taking place between the irresponsible child and the responsible parent of their psyche. Also, since the number 8 can carry a Saturnian coldness about it, April 8 people may give an impression of distance, while inside really having a warm and giving heart. And those ruled by the number 8 should, however, beware of being too fanatical in their views. Interesting. They brought up the fanatical aspect of it. I think we really had to read between the lines in the breakdown to get any kind of idea about that, or hinting of as much. That said, let's dive into the notes again, see what I had to say here, see if I can expand upon any of this. The number 8 and the planet Saturn for responsibility, limitation, caution, and fatalism, or a concern for fate, if you like, or an otherwise conservative nature when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of a Saturn-ruled day. And they said cool, cold exterior, even though you got the warm heart, very common for the Saturn individuals. And it is with this energy that Saturn often comes into conflict with some of the bigger energy type planets. Specifically with Jupiter, there's a famous conflict with that particular planet. But I would say in your respect, with the Mars aspect of it, Mars is this god of warlike aggression, adventurous ambition kind of planet, kind of fiery. It emboldens a lot of things. But here with Saturn, that's in a direct conflict there. So it's interesting that this is the first case of the word impetuous comes up. And that hasn't really been used to describe Mars and its adventurous ambition. But it's also kind of at the heart of the examination of impulse versus instinct that often gets brought up in the book. And that's also been a very common through line this period as it happens. And in terms of conflict existing with your instinct or your survivalist traits versus the impulse of Mars, they say advance with care. I can kind of get behind that, I would argue. But it's kind of interesting that this comes up because I don't think I would have gone into this particular numbers and planets reading assuming that that would be the case there, knowing what I know from past readings of such planetary influences. That said, don't fight your conservative nature too much, all right, if that Mars is really pushing at you, that lesser evolved aspect, I would say. But just remember, you got the, you got the power behind you if you need to get adventurous, I would say. I don't know, maybe just take it out on the weekends for a test drive once in a while. Just say, well, you're rolling your dice if that's something you're interested in, which probably not if you got a conservative nature. That said, that's been your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, if you could consider it that. But hey, a lot of times these things will serve kind of as a metaphor, almost informing the breakdown in a lot of cases. Other times, not so much. We just kind of have to see what's going on here. But then once we're done with it, we just leave it in the book. Sometimes it doesn't line up at all, seemingly. But let's just see what it has to say and then get on with it. All right, let's see what it has to say. The 8th card of Major Arcana is Strength or Courage, which depicts a graceful queen taming a furious lion. The queen symbolizes the female magician who can master rebellious energies and stands for moral as well as physical strength. This card's positive attributes include charisma and determination to succeed. The negative qualities include complacency and a misuse of power. All right, very interesting. On its face, I would say might not necessarily relate so much, but we'll have to dig in here a little bit. But before I do that, I just want to mention this is a copy-paste job through and through. They didn't personalize this for you at all. Despite the fact your numbers and planets, very personalized. Like I said, I don't think I'd run across that particular kind of relation before. So maybe that was the sacrifice in that respect. Sometimes it often is. Other days, they get personalized on both. So who knows why they didn't tweak that a little bit for you. But let's see if I can pick up the so-called slack in that respect. Strength or courage, female magician who stands for moral and physical strength. Or perhaps your moral altruistic tendencies in being cool, calm, and collected under pressure or during a crisis. I would say that seems to line up in that respect. But with positives of charisma, or maybe your energy being directed outward, and a determination to succeed, perhaps the likes of your saintly quality, who's to say, also your unwavering support for others at difficult times. Or also championing the underdog. They mentioned that in the breakdown. I would say that seems to relate also. But with negatives of complacency, or perhaps this disconnect being given to others who are trying to support you, but you're not necessarily game for that. You see it as charity, and maybe that's part of that complacency. What else do we have here? Also, taking care of yourself in that respect, or letting yourself be cared for. Sometimes we're too close to the subject being ourselves. Maybe we don't notice we need support when we do. And if you're not letting others kind of let you know about it, or show concern, you're dismissing it, hey, maybe you're not doing yourself any favors when that's all they're trying to do for you. Well, I don't know. Maybe that relates to that a little bit. Who's to say? But it seems like a very apt card, I would argue, especially since Aries, for whatever reason, seems to kind of have a lot of those qualities also. But have anything else here? Oh, no, I was trying to say most of Aries cards have seemed to relate very well. That's what I was trying to say. Misread something there. Some other months, some other periods, some of the cards kind of hit and miss. Aries, by and large, they've been relating really well, even when they just serve as a metaphor. It almost seems to inform the breakdown. So that's been an anomaly also. And Aries, by and large, huge anomaly. A lot of the times the planets, you kind of lead into it thinking you know where they're going to go. Aries has been bucking that trend. So I don't know why, for whatever reason. But here, there's another little interesting dynamic popping up. Here nor there to you, perhaps, but for me, it's interesting. That said, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right, let's get into it here. April 8 people must beware of giving too much energy to others, either individuals, causes, or religions. Like other Aries, April 8 people are outwardly directed, but due to their strong social consciousnesses, all right, they may neglect personal considerations, hence not paying enough attention to their own health. For the most part, just an ordinary interest in their personal well-being will serve to keep those born on this day healthy. Regular vacations to the woods, mountains, or seaside grant a much-needed respite from the burdens and the cares of the world. And those born on April 8 will enjoy eating, but not if those around them are being deprived of food. Thus, sharing meals with others is particularly satisfying to them. All right. A pretty sparse health entry, to be honest. They didn't include a lot of the typical things that go into one. Again, a common Aries thing here for the book. I don't know why they kind of pick a period to, who knows, maybe they were kind of up against a deadline at this particular point in the book. Who's to say? That might explain it, though. In any event, getting ahead of myself on matters that don't really matter, if you like. Let's get into the notes here. Health. You must beware of giving too much of yourself to others, they said. And you need support also, I would argue. I think I briefly touched on that. The reading claims only an ordinary interest to maintain the status quo. Don't think I've seen that come up before. It's interesting. So don't forget about personal maintenance. It sounds like you don't have to do very much anyway, so don't neglect it, I would say. There's no specific diet mentions. Again, another anomaly. Oftentimes they'll do that. You know, let's say this person can eat meats or this person really shouldn't. It usually seems to be dictated by whatever planet is kind of co-ruling or really sending home most of its power to you. Mars, they can usually do whatever they want. So you have that kind of going for you. But often cases in this particular period, balance comes up a lot, especially if there's a conflict in the planets. So maybe mind that. Rather par for the course this period, insofar as no diet being mentioned, like I said. Same goes for exercise as it happens. Oftentimes they'll tell the individual in the health entry, hey, this is the kind of exercise you can get after or that you need. Here it seems rather conservative, with the Saturn aspect there perhaps. But for a Mars day, or at least when Mars kind of comes into the mix over the rulership there, they tend to get aggressive or strenuous, vigorous exercise recommendations to ostensibly get that God of War energy excised. Get it out if you like. Maybe you can get combative sports recommendations. Haven't been seeing that come up for Aries too much, if at all, considering, and that's weird considering Mars is in the dynamic there for the zodiac. It's the rulership planet there. But it's just how it goes, I suppose. Again, another anomaly. But that said, moderate has been coming up for most of the days when and if it is mentioned. But it also happens to say people in this period are so active in kind of pushing after their drives or their motivations anyway, that moderate exercise is just fine, and or they get enough exercise anyway. So maybe that dynamic follows through into this day, so they didn't feel like mentioning it, because you get what you need anyhow. That said, Aries body areas of the head, neck, spine, and brain. Stress has been something they said to have concern for. Mind stress. Also, chiropractic got mentioned for folks if they need a little bit of care. But it was only for one day, surprisingly, which is weird considering the spine to be a body type. A lot of the other days, take a for instance, I can't remember what period it was, but their lymphatic system was the body area, so they were always recommended to stay away from milk and the like. Doesn't apply to you, but I'm just saying, like, they touched on that very often, so it's surprising they haven't touched on that for you. I think yesterday was the first mention of headaches, to be concerned for those, which makes sense body area wise, but they've been avoiding such things. Any event, just stuff to be mindful of in that respect. That said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. Here we go. Be tolerant as you can and beware of condescension. Open up, attend to your personal needs, and don't be too sacrificing, and you may come to resent it later. Put aside time for reflection. All right, quick in and out with the advice today. I don't know if they really did you any favors in that respect, but maybe that's all you need to hear. What with Saturn, maybe you got it all calm and collected already. Who's to say? What did I have to say about what they had to say? They said, be tolerant and beware condescension. All right. I didn't pick up on condescending airs outside of maybe the favoritism that came into things, insofar as who you choose to support. But I would say that's par for the course for an atypical star, that condescension. But if you remember, you guys aren't atypical stars, all right? But it wouldn't do your altruism any favors if that was something factoring into it. So maybe something to just be mindful of. Am I getting condescending at this? Yeah, hey, always something to be reflective of, I would say, in general. But again, I didn't really pick up on where that came into the breakdown or why they put this in here. So again, maybe just check in once in a while. Make sure you aren't projecting that too. It's not going to do you any favors. It's also your prerogative who you give your time to and who you support, I would say. But favoritism isn't a good look either, so just be mindful of it. Also, Aries folks, very common through line. They get a lot of antagonism from other folks. Usually it's because they're so good at their job and it breeds a little bit of resentment. That might be a little factor in there too for you if you're always doing so well with the giving of your time and energy. Then that might promote a certain kind of antagonism. I know that seems totally dissociated perhaps, but as much as antagonism comes up in the book for this period, I had to let it kind of be mentioned, because that would seem maybe that would be the focal point for that arising for you. So just be wary of it. This guy or gal's so giving of their time, man. You know, until they get all angry at you because you're being given to folks. Or why aren't they that way for me? Because your favoritism's coming into it. Yeah, so just be mindful. The antagonism's there in that respect. They also say open up and don't be too sacrificing. You may resent it later. All right, huge advice and probably the most important thing to tend to, and that is yourself. All right, it sounded like it goes by the wayside. Happens on occasion in the book. People are self-sacrificing. Usually it's a Neptune day, and number 7. Those folks typically tend to have high ideals, and they're dedicated to a cause. So I was a little surprised this came up today, since that was something you might see on a day like yesterday. It's kind of interesting in that respect. But you can't be at the top of your game if you're always helping others and you're run down mentally or physically, psychologically, if you like. You probably won't find it as fulfilling either, all right? You get a certain sense of fulfillment from that, but if it becomes a job, it's tedious. Hey, that's no good, and that's going to get passed on to the people you're trying to help. They're not going to get the full support from you, I would say. So we want to maintain you so that you can do your best down the line. What else do they say? Put aside time for reflection. And ostensibly, you don't need to do very much of it to maintain the status quo if it's anything like your health, all right? Cultivating self-awareness is a huge through line for the book. They didn't necessarily get into that directly, but I would say it was in there spits and spatters if you look between the lines. But it's a through line in the book, so it bears repeating. Also being measured and finding balance, all right? And I would say time for reflection is going to promote that. So be objective with yourself. That's something that came up yesterday, be objective. So that might have to carry forward a little bit since it's so proximate. Yeah, be objective and pragmatic with your efforts from time to time. And I'm sure that's going to help you balance things. And I'm sure you want to enjoy your acts of service and not have it soak your being, if you like. Taking a little bit of energy is fine, but soaking your wherewithal, not good, all right? That said, that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right, it's your birthday, you get a meditation. All right, here we go. I am a human being from the planet Earth. Interesting. Don't know what to make of that one. Once again, I am a human being from the planet Earth. All right, actually, I think I got it. I think I see it for you. That said, your birthday, your meditation, I'm not going to influence it for you by telling you what I think about it, all right? Outside, I think it's good, okay? That said, your meditation in a can. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. All right, let's see where you got the girth and where you otherwise ostensibly a little more atrophied, all right? Your strengths, you're ethical, you're giving, and socially responsible. All right, I think we picked up on all those. But your weaknesses, can we guess what those might be? We've got self-sacrificing. I say we saw that. Extreme, it says. I don't know if I picked up on that one so much. Maybe between the lines a little. And emotionally closed. Yeah, they mentioned that, I would say. That's oftentimes I like to say, hey, our strengths can help us overcome our weaknesses, all right? But I also like to make a case that our weaknesses can also be strengths in and of themselves. So let's see if I can make a case here. You're ethical, giving, socially responsible. How can those help us with our own weaknesses? You're ethical, I would say you're gonna figure out which is the best way to serve who? That's right, yourself, all right? The best way to do it, most responsible. There you go, socially responsible for yourself, okay? You're gonna... It's the weakness to not be focused on yourself. Pick up the bag, all right? You do it for others. You can look in the mirror and you can reflect that on yourself. Give the time to help yourself get over your weaknesses, all right? Your weaknesses, though, how can those be strengths? Self-sacrificing. Well, obviously, if you're putting the time in and you're giving yourself over to that cause with everything you got, things are going to get done. Whatever the cause is, all right? Whatever the job is. You might have to shift the words job, the concepts of job and cause, trade them back. But hey, you're going to get after whatever comes through because you give 100%, all right? Extreme. There you go. You give 100% because you're extreme, okay? I don't know if that's that conservative nature coming through. I didn't necessarily pick up on extreme so much, but I can see how it can be a weakness. Again, you're going too hot, too heavy, too hard, too fast, you're going to burn out, all right? But sometimes that's needed, all right? Sometimes the job is huge and it needs that extreme mentality to get it done right. Emotionally closed. Hey, sometimes we got to shut off the emotions so that we can persevere. All right. That said, that's not healthy in the long run. So you got to give time to express it once the job's done, or maybe just in the course of the evening, or when you go on that nature walk they recommended. Like they said, it don't take much for you for whatever particular reason. Maybe that Mars fire helps you in that respect. In any case, I don't know if I made the strongest case for my argument, but I think you get the point, all right? So don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether because they're part of who you are, as I like to say, all right? Self-awareness, cultivate it. There you go. So there's your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is look at it from the perspective of figuring out a passion or a purpose, because all too often I get out in the world and meet folks who are just punching a time clock. They're not doing anything that they find personally fulfilling. And I think having that in your life makes all the difference, all right? It gets you doing figurative or literal backflips out of bed in the morning to get into your day. I know maybe you got to have that 9 to 5 so that you can support the thing that drives you. Maybe that's the point, right? But that said, some folks still don't have that in their lives. So if there's anything I can wish you on your birthday, it's that you're finding a purpose or you're putting in the work to figure that out, because I think it takes time and effort, longevity to arrive at such notions. So if there's anything I can do besides share who shares your company, well, hey, let's look at it from the perspective of you trying to figure that out for yourself, all right? But if you already do have that figured out, well, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you, and you can just see who shares your birthday. So let's dive into it here. Those born on this day. We start off with József Antal, a Hungarian anti-communist prime minister and a scholar. We also have Albert I, the World War II Belgian king who led armies to retake Belgium. We also have Jacques Brel, Belgian chansonnier and songwriter. Probably saying chansonnier right. I'm not even sure what that is. Chansonnier. Is that someone who knows about wines? I'm not sure what that is. All right, here we go. Hao Hsien, probably saying that wrong too, a Taiwanese film director and responsible for City of Sadness. We also have Leon Blum, French socialist premier. Betty Ford, First Lady, and founded the Alcohol Treatment Center. Social cause, there's one. We also have E.Y. Harburg, a lyricist responsible for Over the Rainbow, Brother, Can You Spare a Dime, and Finian's Rainbow. We also have Sonja Hine, a Norwegian 10-time world figure skating champion, won 3 consecutive Olympic gold medals, was also a film actress. We have Carmen McRae, a jazz singer, John Hondo Havlik, a Boston Celtics basketball forward, 4-time All-NBA first team and 6th all-time scorer. It would be funny if he was a all-time an MLB player for the Celtics. That wouldn't make any sense. All right. Okay. We also have Jim Catfish Hunter, baseball pitcher and 5-time 20-game winner, hurled the perfect game, it says. Also a Cy Young Award winner. We have Franco Corrielli, operatic tenor, Sir Adrian Boult, B-O-U-L-T, maybe Bolt, British conductor, Julian Lennon, singer-songwriter and Song of John, Peggy Lennon, the singer of the Lennon Sisters, and or a singer in the Lennon Sisters, not the, or else there wouldn't be plural, and the Lawrence Welk Show. We also have Donald Whitehead, a journalist, Ian Smith, a Rhodesian premier, Robert Giroux, New York editor and publisher, probably saying that wrong, Giroux. We also have Seymour Hersh, a Vietnam journalist, and is this Ilka Chase, an actress and a writer? I don't know, but today definitely broke it off in me in trying to pronounce these names, so let's make it up on my side of things. It's not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't work for me with a lot of these names here. That said, A lot of names I didn't recognize, but they got in the book, so they did something with their lives, all right? And I think you can too if you're not chasing after a passion or a purpose. So like I said, if there's anything I can wish you on your birthday, hopefully it's that. So if doing this did nothing else but help the gears turn and put the seed in your mind, I hope that's the case, all right? That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, except to say your season is spring. Your sign is Aries, once again, of the Aries II period specifically, the star, and your quality and your element is Cardinal Fire. And what's that? Well, that's a whole host of videos altogether on the channel if you're interested, so go check those out. That being said, this has been April 8th, the day of conscience. From The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Used Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description above a note I put together for the birthday boys and girls there, a little personal note. Let's go check that out if you're interested. Or if you're interested in the book, hey, I can't recommend it highly enough. You've got a party that you're holding or hosting, and you're not the kind of person who really likes to be the social, is it social butterfly? I'm not sure, but maybe you need to get the party started off right. Hey, throw this down on a coffee table, start reading people's birthdays, all right? It's going to get the conversation started for better or worse, all right? And people are going to be leaving going, that was interesting, all right? At least I would argue. That's how it was presented to me, all right? So get after it if you're interested. That said, having relayed the book, not altogether all too important, not when it's someone's birthday. That's right. So once again, if it's your birthday, hey, I just want to say, happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us to celebrate, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, learned something about your ostensible loved one or friend there, and I hope to see you for your birthday. That's right. So once again, you heard it here. Happy birthday. Take care of yourselves. Don't let that Martian fire energy put the impetuousness into your life and cause conflict. Let it out once in a while, right? It doesn't have to be much, like they said, all right? So once again, stay conservative and don't show too much favoritism, all right? Unless it's towards yourself. It sounds like you may need it. All right, folks, let's get a happy birthday. Take care.